Here we are, MPTF influencers. Hi, Jessie. How are you?
I'm doing great, Courtney. Thank you so much for having me in this program.
Jessie, first of all, thank you for being, oh my gosh, where do I start with you? Like, I don't even know sometimes where to start with you. I remember Bob talking about you. I remember hearing about you before I met you. Then I remember you joining our board, and I am in absolute awe of what you've done. There's no way we'll get through, of course, like your life story. So it's fine. Like, we know you're not going anywhere. You better not. You're here today, as you know, as Jen just said, we were just off of Harry's poetry hour, which we'll bring you back for that. I mean, I was like, I was crying off my makeup, because poetry, it's like, makes you so vulnerable. And we got to some really gorgeous moments with our staff. But let me ask you first. So first of all, hi everyone. All of our residents are watching, and our whole entertainment community, you guys, I am always so blessed to have on-influencers, true influencers. They're multi-hyphenates. Jessie Kornberg is a phenom. You are an absolute incredible advocate. You are a human that all of us should know your story. Jessie's the president and CEO of the Skirball Cultural Center. We'll get into like a lot of background. We'll look back, we'll look forward, we'll look present. But Jessie, what's going on behind you? What is all this? What are you planning to build? Is this a campaign? What's happening here?
So I am at the Skirball Cultural Center right now.
Yeah.
The beautiful Corwin boardroom here. I'm overlooking, if you could see my view, I'm looking out at the Taper Courtyard, which is our big central courtyard with the big lily pond. We have 2 ducks who live in the pond. We named them Jack and Audrey. And behind me, you have a model of the campus. Our campus was designed by an architect named Moshe Safdie, who's an internationally renowned architect. He's now built many museums throughout the United States and the world. This was his first museum in the United States. And this model shows the entire campus. So very lucky to get to work by this on a regular basis.
Well, from one incredible campus to another, I feel like you and I are both so lucky to work. And luck is there's sweat equity there too, but we're so lucky to be on 2 incredible campuses. And Bob knows that I'm a proud Bruin, and to have the conferences that UCLA has had at the Skirball, and that had been my first introduction really to the property and to the soul of the center, and it's truly incredible. And then to have you at the helm of it, which we'll get into. But I want to just let's get into your. It's a short life story because you're such a young, incredible woman. But Jessie, where are you from? Like, tell everyone. Did you grow up here? Like, what's give us your Cliff's Notes of the first 15 to 18 years. What was Jessie's life like?
I am a California native, but I'm not from Los Angeles.
Okay.
I grew up mostly in the Bay Area.
Okay.
My grandfather and my grandmother were professors at the medical school at Stanford University. And so when my grandmother fell ill, we moved in with them to help care for her. And so.
How old were you at that point, by the way? Because I bet that had a big part of your caregiving, like your soul. How old were you?
But I was 2 when I was pretty much a caretaker. I was taking the care, not giving the care at age 2. And then stayed in that area, until I was about high school age. When I was 14, I was very lucky. I got an opportunity to move to New York City and dance with American Ballet Theater. And so I spent 4 years with the company in New York, dancing at the Met, kind of living out, a lot of childhood dreams. And so that's where I was from birth to age 18.
Hold on. We have to unpack that a little bit. So when did you start dancing?
Yeah, I started dancing when I was very, very young. My very first stage role was as the little lost cookie in the Nutcracker.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Everybody knows that part, And, then went on to play just about every other part in the Nutcracker over the next 15 years or so.
Did you come from a family of dance? Was that like part of you just, it was going to happen? Or how did, especially as a mom, when like maybe the path isn't clear, like what got you there?
Yeah, my mom and dad, when they were growing up, they didn't live in households that really could afford recreational activities. That wasn't something that they got to do a lot of. And so it was always a dream that they had for their kids to be able to explore their passions and really pursue, whatever artistic interests we might have. And so I think when I was a youngster, I got to try a lot of things. I tried gymnastics and ballet. I think I was on a little league team at one point. Then they really just let us try to find our strengths and our joys and really lean into whatever, we kind of found. And for me, that was dance.
And was it always ballet? I mean, is that I would imagine that was probably your start and why you got into this was, were you doing hip hop? Were you just like, did it start in ballet as a little kid?
Yeah, I think that was probably the most accessible dance class in the sort of little suburb where I grew up.
Yeah.
And definitely what I did the most of during my training. As I became, a more advanced dancer, it was really essential to my success that I have multidisciplinary training. And so, I did study jazz and folk dance and, other forms, but always primarily ballet, classical ballet.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, as a wannabe dancer, someone just like that I love music but never trained. But that it seems like the foundation, just like of any sport, any art, that ballet is probably the most solid foundation you're ever going to build upon. And how beautiful is that? Do we still practice this a little bit, Jessie? No more ballet, no bar in the house. Do you see a railing when you're like walking by things and you're like, I just want to stretch or do something? No?
It's been a while. So like most dancers, my career ended in injury. I was in a car accident when I was 18. And so the physical impacts of that accident took me out of dance for, the next 4 years. I was in physical therapy. And by the time I was sort of back on my feet, I had lost the ability to dance at that level anymore.
Well, I know we weren't really going to talk about this, but since you brought it up, and I'm very curious of this journey and 4 years. I mean, it sounds like it was a pretty traumatic situation.
Yeah, I mean, I bet that there are in our audience today other residents and community members who know what I mean when I say life is long. And it's easy to have a plan. It's hard to stick to it.
Sure.
And so there are plenty of moments that feel like setbacks, but that's not the end of any story. And so for me, I was very fortunate to survive the car accident, and there were other people who didn't. And so however hard the road back to physical health was, I always knew how incredibly fortunate I was to have that opportunity. And For me, it meant going to college, which had always been a tension, maintaining a full-time professional dance career and a full-time education, school load was always really challenging. And I got to go to college as a result of.
Where'd you go?
I went to Columbia University, New York. So I got to stay in New York. Was what I want. That was very, very nice for me. And so, I was very focused on getting back, getting my health back and getting my physical shape back. But at the same time, I was enrolled in classes and discovering this whole other world that while I was dancing and so focused on dance, I really was closed off to. And so, that was an incredible gift that I was able to go to school.
So, when you're now, your world's opened up a little bit, you're able to focus away from dance, have this kind of new, lease on life after what you've done. What was it when you were in school in Columbia and in New York, and what was it that kind of sparked that? Oh, here's a new interest. What was that next road that kind of revealed itself to you?
Yeah, so I was in Manhattan on September 11th, 2001, when the Trade Center was attacked. And that was another really formative experience for me. And so, I think many people in New York at that time and around the country at that time felt a real call to duty as a result of those attacks and that experience. And I was one of those people. And so my sort of first job out of college was working for Mayor Bloomberg on the effort to rebuild Lower Manhattan. And that was my introduction to public service. I had never worked in government or public service before. And I loved it. I thought it was so interesting. And I felt like I was doing something that was not just important to me, but important in a bigger sense, right? Be bigger than me. And I loved that. And so that was my introduction to public service. And that job evaporated because the city government in New York lost their lawsuit against the insurers of the World Trade Center site. And so they lost both the money and the zoning power to redesign the site. And so I had nothing to do. So I was looking around city government for another position. And there was an opportunity in New York City's Department of Homeless Services, working with shelter providers on after school and recreational programming for homeless youth and families. And so that was my next position. And that was my introduction to poverty work. And I've been hooked ever since. I mean, I was totally hooked then. And the next 20 years of my professional life have been devoted to that and related activism.
Which we can get so much into and timely, unfortunately, but also I think it's a positive thing. But we lost a legend yesterday in Ann Douglas. 102, and a quote stuck with me from her yesterday about how she was uber philanthropic, just like her entire family and Kirk, who's been they've been so lovely to MPTF. Yeah. But one thing that really stuck out was that she wanted to really be, if she could leave this earth, the celestial body of being an advocate for homelessness and to eradicate that. And to hear you say that, my goodness, are you on that path? Obviously, it is. I thought your story was stunning, but it's unveiling itself in such a beautiful way. So you are, my goodness, in great company, and your heart is incredible.
I'll just speak to homelessness for a moment.
Please do.
So sorry to hear about Ann's passing, but so inspired by her life and her legacy and this parting message. I couldn't agree with her. I bought into a lot of the things we say to make ourselves feel better about the fact that this still exists in our society. Yeah. And it wasn't until I had my first child and had to try to explain homelessness to him that I had a real wake up call. Because it turns out when you try to explain homelessness to a young person, you know, there's that age like 3.5, 4, where they just say why, and then you try to answer, and then they say why again, and then you try to answer, and they say why
And
again.
tell us, what did you do?
Over and over. And what you eventually get to on the question of why is someone homeless, the answer is there is no good reason. There is no justification, and there is no good reason for it. And it really was a wake-up call for me. I'd been like in the work for 15 years and was too complacent about the existence of this problem, the existence of this experience for too many people for too long. And there is absolutely no excuse for chronic homelessness in a community like Los Angeles. None. There's none. Just tell my 3.5-year-old. He'll be like, but why? And then you won't be able to answer the follow-up. And it really changed the way I interacted with unhoused people. And it's changed my viewpoint on it. So you know, just never, it's never too late to relearn how to find like a deeper humanity, right?
Absolutely. And those children, you know, whether they're your own or you're just around that innocent, you know, opinion, to be able to explain it, or to the opposite, to not be able to explain it, really grounds you. And I mean, Jessie, I'm in awe every time I drive to see my parents and I go through downtown, or today driving to the doctor on San Vicente and just seeing how prevalent it is. Are you hopeful in this situation? Are you hopeful that we're getting to a better place? Where are you at?
Yeah. So Los Angeles has some deep-seated systemic issues that are going to be very difficult to overcome. None of the problems that make homelessness a persistent issue in Los Angeles have anything to do with the personalities or life experiences of those homeless people. It's all about the way we approach the issue. And so I do have some pessimism, to be candid, about our willingness to change those very deep-seated systemic issues. That said, I also believe that the prevalence, the visibility of this unacceptable humanitarian crisis is our best hope right now for real change, because so many people like you, Courteney, are seeing the evidence of these broken systems on a daily basis. And so more and more of us are coming to a place where we simply will not accept this anymore. And that does give me hope. If there are enough of us who are saying to our elected leaders and our policymakers, no, that is not good enough, you have to do more, I think that is what's going to make a difference.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more. As you know, as just a human, but as a mom, you know, trying to give the best example, I think one of the hardest questions we get sometimes, and maybe just to ourselves, is like, well, what can we do? And it seems overwhelming, but there are a lot of small steps to take that make a big difference. And you speak really beautifully to that. It's, and it just starts with not accepting it. We don't accept racism. We don't accept systemic inequality for whatever area that might touch. And it's an unfortunate but nice segue, because you have really, you know, with your career that is going to span so much longer, but you've been like trying to dismantle systemic inequality, and like everything that you've done, everything that I've read about you, everything that you've done on paper as a person. By the way, you know, I don't want to bring up age, truly. You are obviously the youngest member of our board of directors for the MPTF. your voice every single time in that meeting is something special, it is something refreshing and something beyond your years. And we are so grateful, by the way, just to have your voice, and it's wonderful. So, but talking about systemic inequality, I mean, you've worked for the NAACP, NOW, so I'm curious to know, if we could talk, and again, I know we don't have a ton of time to get into your whole life. Like, I hope you're writing your book. And maybe it is The Little Lost Cookie is the title of it, which would be so great. But especially considering last year, NAACP, what was that experience like when you worked there? And I know you were at VetCivic, and am I saying this properly, by the way? Yeah, okay. Which, incredible. But what was it like being with the NAACP? You're white, right? Like, let's be real. Like, let's say what you have, but you're at the NAACP doing great things as a female. What was that like?
Well, I was in law school. I went to UCLA for law school with my husband, Aaron.
We have to take a Bruin moment. I always have to take a Bruin moment. Thank you, Bob. I know if you get a Cardinal moment as well, Bob, and a Bruin moment. So we'll marry all of that.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of UCLA and of public education in general. It is, I think, the silver bullet to a lot of the problems that persist in our community. So incredibly fortunate to go to UCLA, which has an incredible public interest program. My husband was a part of that program. And through the law school, we were invited to go down, take time off from school, and go down to Louisiana in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. So Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast in early August of 2005. I was in my second year of law school at that time, just started my second year of law school at that time.
2L year, yep, know it well.
And so it took, several months for the waters to recede, for the basic health and public safety triage to step up. And then social services started to come in and assess the socioeconomic damage and the social and civil rights damage. And so that fall, we were invited, in lieu of attending classes, to go down and just start being lawyers. And so
the fall of your 2L year?
Yeah.
So you started out your 2L year just going there?
That's right. So we traveled down, and I had never spent time in the Southeast. I never spent time in New Orleans, which is its own, animal.
Yes.
And I must say that I just completely fell in love with it as I found it in November 2005, which was, not its best day, right? So, so that was a project run by the NAACP, Legal Defense and Education Fund. And we had, a team of lawyers from NAACP who were there on the ground, identifying issues where they just needed to slot in bodies, And so we were, I was just a helping hand, and I was mostly working on incarcerated youth, civil rights issues that had come up for that population during the storm and the aftermath of the hurricane. And so it doesn't sound a lot like legal work, but for example,
it's to me, but I got you.
There was an issue. There was one of the issues we worked on. They had juvenile detention facilities, and the initial decision was to leave youth chained to the floor as the water rose. Many of those children could not swim. It was terrifying. And once it became clear that it was a life and death situation in those facilities, they did start to take kids out, but they put them, instead of in a hospital or therapeutic setting appropriate to the experience they had endured, they took them to adult prisons up country that were not flooding and placed them in general population.
Children.
Yeah. And then many of the records of who was where were kept in paper and were lost in the flood. And so, or the records of who they had sent to which new facilities were never maintained. So actually, my first job when I got to Louisiana was just a list. We had a list of every kid we thought might have been incarcerated before the storm. And I was just calling every other adult facility in the state, trying to find each kid and then petition for their release and rehousing and, and all of those things. And it's just one of those moments where actually being a white lawyer was of benefit to the client, the potential client we were trying to locate and serve. And so, I think it's just a very, very basic rudimentary example of, yes, things are unfair. Yes, there is oppression and inequality. I'm going to use all of my privilege to try to help dismantle it. Right? And so, let me bring all of my fancy whiteness to this moment and see if I can't get a prison warden to give me a straight answer on a question. And so that's what it was like to be there right then. And that work, just the exposure to incarcerated populations in the South and specifically the example of inmates in Louisiana was very impactful for me. And so ended up doing prison condition reform litigation in Louisiana for many years after.
Unbelievable. I feel like you've lived lifetimes and you've done some really incredible work and seen some not so favorable things. This work, thank you, to everyone who's still continuing this work, by the way. And now you are at, as president and CEO of the Skirball Cultural Center, which I want to just shift a little, since we're kind of in this midpoint here, and you're now part of our organization as a member of our board of directors, again, with MPTF. Very similar theme to what you've been doing, which the building the safety net of taking care of our own clearly is a theme that has run through your life and so many of the incredible people with us. But what's your MPTF story? How did you first come to know us?
Yeah, I love MPTF so much. I met MPTF through my work at Betsedic Legal Services. And so Betsedic Legal Services is one of the oldest and largest providers of free legal aid in the country. And I was at Betsedic starting in 2014 and loved the work we did there so much. But would tell you every day of the week, we were a law firm, not a social service provider. And we were really focused on being really good lawyers, but not all the other things that many of our clients need. All of the social emotional support that makes life possible, Betsedic was not in charge of providing. And so we relied, in so many cases, our success in the courtroom was predetermined by the other social support networks or the other health access networks that our clients maintained. And what I learned very early on is that we were really lucky and really happy when one of our clients came from the MPTF community, because we knew that we were going to have a better chance of actually being successful on behalf of that client, because the entire MPTF care network was going to be lockstep with us supporting that resident or that member. And so I just really, really front line saw how important MPTF was to the health and safety and thriving success of the people that it served. So that's how I met MPTF. And then, gosh, I think I had a board member at Betsedic who knew Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, like, first I met, Naomi and like other people who were in our, in MPTF's caregiving network. And so I was really more familiar with those folks. And then I think I had a board member, Alan Friedman.
By the way, mentioning Naomi, Jess, and Jennifer, but Bob, get on camera here. Here we go. Perfect timing.
Alan Friedman.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking, was that Alan Friedman introduced us, right, Bob?
We had breakfast at the Westwood Marquee, I think.
Amazing. So I got to meet Bob, and Bob is such an incredible, dynamic, and heart-forward leader. And I will say, I was also, the Bedsedic job was a big leap forward for me. I had never run an institution of that size or complexity. And I definitely was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, just trying to do too much at once, and saw Bob as this really experienced.
Jesse, you were the CEO.
I was. It's a big step.
It was a big deal. Yeah.
And just met Bob, and he had such a calm, thoughtful, strategic approach to his work and to MPTF's future. And so really just
No, you're not. Keep going.
There were just some people that I would meet where I thought, I wonder if they have more hours in their day than I do, because like they seem to be getting it all done, but they don't seem crazy. Like, how does that work?
First of all, it's a secret that we'll never know about why and how Bob continues, especially living on campus through the whole pandemic, basically. Shout out to Carol and the whole family, but we don't know. It's a mystery, but still, please continue.
Yeah, so met Bob, and just such a huge fan of the work that he and the whole team were doing.
Yeah,
and just so admiring of his leadership in particular. And so then that just the friendship and the camaraderie continued, and I don't know why or how it came about, but at some point Bob asked if I would want to join the board of directors of the MPTF, and I was like, well, you're crazy, man. I thought you were so smart, but it turns out not so much. And I just always, I've said it to Bob so many times, and I'll say it every time, I will serve MPTF however I can. And if I can be helpful on the board, great. And if it's time for me to be off the board and helpful for me to be a volunteer and a donor, that's great too. I think it's an amazing organization. And I would just say, in addition to that frontline experience of seeing how impactful the work of the organization is, I also live in LA now, and we're an industry town. And I'm not in the industry.
But you're an industry family.
I am an industry family. My husband works at Warner Brothers, and so it felt
wonderful friend of ours. Yes.
Yeah, Warner's is so it felt particularly personally meaningful and satisfying to have an opportunity to be involved in a community organization that not just reflected, other people in my family, but also this larger community that I have joined. I'm not a native to Los Angeles. I'm not a native to the industry, but it is the predominant force here. And so, when I look out at what the opportunities are to be involved in different community organizations, it meant so much to me to be involved in this one, because it felt like a good thing for LA, and so it makes me feel like a good Los Angelino too.
Well, and the way that you've brought together, I love that you've been on the front lines of so many other issues, and being, an Angelino now and connecting with Bob, you've played so many other roles in the advocacy network, in dismantling inequality, and to see, and you bring that gravitas that really all of our board members, that so many bring to it, but you're able to provide a voice that so many people think, well, it's the entertainment industry. You've got these rich actors, but the entertainment industry is a micro to the macro. It's an example of everything that you've already been involved in. And so you get the chance to be a part of like you said, like you've been an incredible lawyer, but the social workers, right? They are heroes. I mean, some of them just talked to Kevin Feige the other day of Marvel, and to have the architect of the Marvel universe talk to the everyday heroes, and for him to be so incredibly wonderful with our Linda Healy and our Jennifer George, who you know very well, is like, this is, I wish that everybody could model. I am not part of the entertainment industry until now, and I am so grateful to have this tangential role, and I'm so in awe of the creatives and what people create. But to see the social workers who thread that fabric of taking care of our own, and I hope that every industry could model, on what we do. So, here you are with us on our board of directors, and here you are in our 100th anniversary. And you remind me, you joined prior to the pandemic, but like just prior, correct? It wasn't
MPTF?
Yeah, the board of directors, at least.
I think it's been maybe, Bob probably remembers better.
2019. It was 2019.
Years? Yeah,
18 or 19.
Years? Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jessie, let me ask you, you come from it from a different perspective. And I ask a lot of our board members and our supporters, we're in our 100th year, which in and of itself, to be a 100-year-old organization looking forward to the next 100 years of service, you've spoken about it, but what is it about our mission of taking care of our own? What is it that excites you about what you all are going to do moving forward and why we're here?
Yeah. Well, as I said, I have seen firsthand how powerful the work at MPTF is, and that was before I was on the board. Now I get to, that was just anecdotal in my personal experience. Now I get to sort of see the big picture, and it's even more incredible.
Yes. And you also, are on our social services governing body, which really shows you the work at its deepest level, even beyond the board. So
yeah, it does. I love that work. I mean, it's amazing too. I feel just so lucky that I get to be on those calls and say, yeah, let's help more people.
Well, you say a lot more than that, by the way. I'm always impressed, but yes.
But I think, the centennial it's an interesting moment for the organization. I'm actually on the board of two different entities. I'm on the board of MPTF, and I am on the board of the Los Angeles Urban League. And both are celebrating their 100th anniversaries this year.
Really?
And I've been thinking a lot about what Los Angeles was like 100 years ago.
Wow.
And what the next 100 years are going to be like, right?
Yeah.
And so I have given this a fair bit of thought, and I've tried to think about what anything was like 100 years ago. And the reality is I don't really know. But I had occasion to think about this. My grandfather would have been 100 a year ago. And I do know a lot about what his childhood was like and how he describes growing up in New York. He was in Brooklyn and the Lower East Side. And it was this very exciting moment in New York. There was this incredible mixing of immigrant communities, of which he was a part, and this beating heart in the Western world was in New York. And so much of the last 100 years in terms of finance and culture and our sort of understanding of ourselves and the world came out of New York at that moment. The modern civil rights movement was born in Harlem. The sort of scientific ingenuity and technological innovation, they all came from that generation in that place. And I think about that, and then I think about LA right now, 100 years later. And I think LA is that place for this generation. I think right now, LA is the place with the most opportunity. We are ascendant. We're on the cusp of so many good things. But it takes doing them well and doing them with care and bringing everyone along into that prosperity and that opportunity. to
Yeah.
do it well. And I think
Yeah.
if we do it well, and if we care for everyone well, then 100 years from now, like my granddaughter will look back and think, God, she was just so lucky to be there at that time, you know? And that's how I feel about MPTF right now. Like this is an inflection point. We have an aging community and not nearly enough investment in the social safety net that is required to age with dignity and care and comfort.
Mm-hmm.
And MPTF is at the very, very front of explaining that to the people who are in a position to make a difference. And they're at the front and able to explain that to the people who are in a position to make a difference because they are making a difference every single day. They are frontline, expert at exactly what we need to ensure dignity and care and humanity for every single life, not just in our entertainment community, but in our larger Los Angeles community. And I think if we do this well, then we can do all the other things well. And so I really believe in this, and I'm so excited to have this anniversary and to look forward to the next generation.
Well, I don't want you to go into politics because we'd lose you, but you'd be fantastic at it and probably a voice that we need. It's exactly, that's it. You know, well said. There's nothing more to say about this opportunity and this moment that we are all in right now.
And this is exactly why she's such an appropriate member of our board of directors.
Bob, I am in awe deeper and deeper every second I hear anything from Jessie, and have been since the moment you brought her in. This is, please continue, Bob. I'd love for you to say anything else right now.
No. It's just an exciting moment for the organization. And it is exciting for LA, and it's exciting for the industry to have an organization like MPTF, as strong as it is, as centrally connected as it is. This is a really important moment.
Yeah, I agree, Jessie. And you know, I think one of the things that was our goal for 2020, which sort of got a little sidetracked, was
got a little COVID.
Yeah, it got a little. It got infected.
What a year.
Yeah. What was to focus on the things that we do that can be seen as national models. Mm-hmm. Because there is a ton of stuff that we're doing in palliative care and call sheet and other stuff that we know can be embraced nationally without a lot of additional cost to anyone, that can have a tremendous impact on improving the lives of younger people and older people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we have the ability to do that because we do it, you know, operationally, and we've got incredible folks who can amplify the message, who, you know, can get the attention of others.
Yep. I completely agree. And I get the social isolation work, the daily call sheet is completely inspired. It's one of those ideas that's such a good idea that when you hear it, you're like, wait, how does that not already exist? Yeah. You can't believe you know, that it's now just a new idea, right? Because it's like, yes, of course, that's exactly what we should be doing.
Yeah.
It's connecting people. Yeah.
And it entails picking up your phone and dialing a phone number and talking to people. I mean, it's not that complicated. I mean, it's got all kinds of weird legal stuff associated with it.
Okay, I'm a lawyer.
You both know very much about that, yes. But at the base of it, I mean, it's just simple, but but common sense is not common. We have to bring that commonality back to these things that mean so much. So I know you're human. I think you are, which gets us to let's talk about a fun point. You know, we've spent so much time, and we could spend so much more time about all that you've done, but also you're part of Motion Picture and Television Fund history. You're part of our organization. So let's talk a little motion picture and television. So I honestly think these are probably harder questions for you, which is And if you want to go historic to present, this can be a two-parter.
I'm so nervous.
I know. Favorite film. And if you want to go like favorite film growing up in life, and then maybe what you've binged over pandemic, but like, what's your favorite film, Jess?
Yes.
This is you're stuck on a desert island, and they only give you only one VHS tape.
VHS?
My favorite film, it's stuck on a desert island with only one VHS is a tougher question than just like, if I've got an idle Thursday night and I can turn anything on, what would
I like Bob's, the real dramatic one. We have to. Yeah.
Desert Island. Ooh, I don't know. But my favorite movie since childhood was The Philadelphia Story with Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant. Always my favorite.
I think Bob likes that answer. This resonates with his heart.
The epitome of everything that I was not, that I wished I was. Like, so elegant and so, I don't know, just a fantasy land that
you're not? Jesse, oh my God. Bob. I think we disagree with her.
Beautiful, and then also hilarious with the younger sister doing like a Marx Brothers routine. Everything about that movie is perfect.
Okay, so maybe a little more, just present. Has there been a film over maybe pandemic, and it could be something you've watched with family. Like, it doesn't matter the genre. What's something recently that's struck you?
Well, I will say we like to go to the movies.
Yeah.
When I was in New York, when I was young in New York, going to the movies was far and away the most expensive recreation I engaged in. It was in the 90s. It was $18 to go to the movies in New York, which now is still probably $18. At the time, that was like 3 meals. Right? So,
now they pay you $18.
So I still get excited to go to the movie theater because it just always felt like such a treat. And so my husband and I love to go to the movies. We love to go to a new release. We live in Silver Lake, so we can go to the Cinerama Dome. We love the movies. And so we have missed the movies a little bit, I would say, over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
But I can say like the 2 movies I saw in theaters over the year before pandemic that I just couldn't get enough of were Knives Out and Get Out, which is funny because both have out in them.
Yes. I don't know if we've heard just those two.
Great theater experiences, like amazing to be in the crowd while you watch those movies.
Well, and Get Out was Daniel Kaluuya, right? Who just won the Oscar, which, I mean, he was he was brilliant in that.
So amazing. So those are 2 more recent than The Philadelphia Story that stand out for me.
Okay.
And not Knives Out, you're going to have Knives Out 2 and Knives Out 3 from Netflix.
Yeah, thanks, Netflix.
And then, of course, Parasite last year, the year before, was also just incredible. Yeah. Not controversial.
Into your series, I'm just dying to know, since you're such a movie buff, you must have a favorite treat. What do you treat? What do you eat at the theater? Movies? What do you like? What's your snack?
I like a lot of snacks. I get a lot of snacks. So my husband gets peanut M&Ms and popcorn, and I get Junior Mints. And sometimes, if I'm at the right theater, they serve milkshakes. Many theaters do not serve milkshakes, and I think that's a mistake.
I agree. I haven't had a milkshake in a theater in a while, but I'd like them all to bring that back.
It's a mistake.
Yeah. Does hubby throw them in does he mix them together?
No, we keep it all separate.
Purist. All right. Yeah, Junior Mints don't mix with popcorn, so I'm not even going to ask you that. That's not even, I don't think anyone thinks that's
And he can't stand the Junior Mints. He thinks I'm disgusting.
Junior Mints are the best.
I love Junior Mints. It's a polarizing treat, though, you guys. My mom passed it on to me. Most people don't enjoy those. It's like, why would I want to have that flavor? I don't know. I love them. All right. What about your favorite television series?
Yeah. So I am a big West Wing fan.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I was the sweet spot for that. I was in high school, college age, teen years when it was on TV, and then binged it all over again when it came on to Netflix. And so you can only imagine how starstruck I was to learn that John Wells was such an enthusiastic supporter of MPTF.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
One of the best, yeah.
So, Jessie, the residents here have been re-binging West Wing as well on the closed circuit TV station. There are a couple of residents that are applauding you right now.
It's so good.
Actually, Jen, I'm surprised. I know our residents are so quiet and they just watch so well, but I was hoping someone would have come on to talk to Jessie. I want to hear from them. Are they just being real quiet today?
It's been a fascinating hour. There's been a lot to take in, and for many people, this is the first exposure that they've had to Jessie. So I get it. I also
and for most of these shows, they love listening and absorbing.
They do.
Yeah.
And getting to know.
Plus, sometimes don't you have actual actors and interesting people? I would imagine.
Oh my gosh, Jessie! First of all,
We couldn't find any of them today, so we booked you.
I'm going to interrupt because we've got another lawyer on. We've got a lawyer on Zoom. We've got 2 lawyers on our panel and a lawyer on the phone. Hello, Bob.
Hi. I would just like to say to Bob, why don't you invite this lady to come on campus and meet the residents?
We're still waiting for the campus to open up, Bob.
But before pandemic, I did get to come to campus, and I did get to meet some residents, and it was such an awesome day. I loved it, and I would love to come back.
Before the pandemic, she did come to meet some of the residents, and she's looking forward to coming back, Bob.
I do think, though, Bob, that we need to get your Irish's musings and your written word to Jessie. So, Jessie, I'm volunteering you, and you're going to now receive Bob Marish's wonderful writings, right, Bob?
If you say so, Courtney.
Yep.
I look forward to it.
Well,
You'll enjoy it.
You'll have
You'll
to
enjoy
share
it deeply.
her email with me. You can do that offline.
Yeah, we'll do that offline.
We will.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob. And Jessie, I didn't realize this, but you and I probably met before you came onto the board because the a cappella group that I sing with would volunteer to come and sing at the Christmas get-together.
No way! Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Okay, so at Bethesda, we throw a holiday celebration for our guardianship clients,
Which is amazing.
It's an amazing program. So the Guardianship Project assists low-income families who have taken in a child whose parents are unavailable or unwilling to care for them. And so these are community members who step up to become a guardian, maybe for the child of somebody who's incarcerated, or oftentimes we see an older sibling step up and become a guardian for younger siblings after a parent is deceased. And so we provide the legal assistance that they need to file all of that paperwork to have the legal guardianship in place with the court. And, they can't afford a lawyer. And the reason they qualify for our services is that they are in extreme poverty. And these are households who are absorbing, new members, new guardian clients into their home. So really can ill afford the holiday treats that they often want to provide their family but cannot. And so we throw a holiday party where we collect gifts and donations for all of those families. And Jennifer is part of this incredible group who comes and sings holiday music. And that's amazing. Thank you so much.
She's got such a beautiful voice, and I'm sure those moments have been impactful for your families.
Oh, it's so fantastic because it's awkward, right? Like they're coming to our offices and you're trying to be festive or whatever. And so the a cappella group totally makes it happen.
Well, Jessie, I put Jen on this. Anytime it's a birthday, I put her on the spot, which is probably the lowest level of what Jen can sing, because her range and talent spans the gamut. And we just did Harry's Poetry Hour, which we'll have to invite you on because I guarantee you there are some things. It was probably the most special hour I've spent with our Creative Chaos team with Harry. And she just sang Hallelujah, Leonard Cohen, and it brought, I not only was brought to tears, like here's my real balled up, you know, I had to turn the camera off because it was one of those like ugly cry things. But Jessie, I collectively love you so much. So grateful to your advocacy, to your heart. Good luck over these next couple months of just life and everything that you're going through, my dear. And I cannot wait to bring you back. I have 50 more questions that, you know, I know you were such a gem to highlight some. There's no way we were going to get through it all, but as a peer, but not, I am in absolute awe of you.
You all are too sweet. Like I said, like I always say to Bob, whatever I can do for MPTF, please let me know.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Jess. Great seeing you.